Testing. Testing. Can you hear me okay online? Okay. Okay, good. monk. Seize, a monk once said to Master Sozan, I am poor and destitute. I beg you, O Master, please help me and make me rich. Sozan said, Venerable Seize? Yes, teacher, replied Seize. Sozan said, having tasted 3 cups of the best wine of Sagan, do you still say your lips are not yet moistened? So that's a beautiful koan. And I thought today I've been thinking about Bernie. And I didn't know really what to talk about today. And here we are on Thursday. It's great, right? It's just feeling, we got over the yuck day yesterday. And now it's Thursday, time moves. And I was reading, these are stories from his students, put in the form of koans. And I started reading this, and I started crying. So I thought, I think that I'm going to share these stories today. And because Bernie had some amazing successors. And I got this book from the Zen Peacemakers. They published it. The Bernie Koans is what it's called. The Bernie Koans. And I was thinking about Bernie, you know, because I went to, we were practicing very formally in Hawaii. And then I went, when Roshi was having his ango at Zen Mountain Center with Maizumi Roshi, I went to the last 3-day sessions. They had sessions at the end of every month there. And they were working hard, you know, on the property there, beautiful property. And so I went to a very formal session, which was great. It was hard, you know, not having sat very much. My legs were just really killing me. I had to, in the breaks, I had to go massage my legs because they were so sore. You know, you kind of have to build up to just sitting. It's a physical practice of not moving. So I went to that session, which was powerful. And I got to be a server. I was like, oh, I have no idea what this means, but okay. And at the beginning of the session, I don't know, maybe there were 30 or 40 people. And at the end of the session, I think there were 60, you know, on the weekend. More people came for the weekend, but I had practiced, because there were about 6 servers to serve, maybe 8 servers to serve everyone. So it's so great to see everybody serving over here. It's really wonderful to have that experience. And of course, there was very formal. Everybody ate in the zendo. So the procedures were a little bit different because we had to bend up and down a lot to serve. But I was younger then. This was in 1994 or something like that. So that was not a problem for me. I had good knees. But I was actually, you get up the last period to go get ready for service. So one less sitting period for me, because they had longer sitting days, you know. We have an abbreviated one here, but they sat more. So it's very strong. And so for those of you who are missing oryoki, We have developed a very nice system of serving here that's quite organized, and the servers pretty much know what they're doing. You know, because there's always a protocol with the service, with anything in Zen. There's a protocol, there's a choreography, a dance, sort of, so to speak, that you have to learn to be smooth. Or not, it does happen, but that's, you know, it's part of it. It's not about being perfect here, but it's really about putting your whole heart into whatever you're doing. Paying attention to all the details, and there's tons of details to pay attention to. Like for the Tenzo, there's even a whole fascicle that Dogen wrote, instructions to the cook, because there's tons of things the Tenzo needs to be aware of and doing and treating vegetables as if they were your eyes. So, we have a very powerful Sesshin, and I thought I would share some stories from this book. The first one I wanted to share with you was Bernie's first student who did Shuso, and that was Peter Matheson, the fantastic writer. And I mean, I was looking at the list of books he's written, tons of books. And he won the National Book Award twice for The Snow Leopard, which is a spiritual travel memoir about trekking in the Himalayas after his wife's death. And so it was really about working about grief as well as a spiritual practice. And he's also written Crazy Horse, In the Spirit of Crazy Horse, about the whole wounded knee experience. And I saw he's also written a book about cranes around the world, and he's visited all these places for cranes. And I thought, ooh, what a good idea. And he and Bernie, for his Shuso experience, went to Japan, because Bernie, you know, was very close to Maizumi Roshi's family, who could, you know, show them around. They went to Eiheiji, and I think they went to Keizan Zenji's temple as well. So Jiji, I think that's called, that, if I got that right. And so Peter wrote a book about that experience. It's called The Nine-Headed Dragon River, his Zen journals, which I haven't read myself, but I want to read after. This is a little excerpt from that. That was 1969 to 1982, his journals. His Dharma name was Muryo, which means without measure or boundless. And he was deeply committed to engage Buddhism, like Bernie, and social action. I did meet him a couple of times, and you know, he was quiet, tall. So, a student of Muryo's wrote this piece for Peter Matheson. The student is Michelle Engu Dobbs, who's from Paris. And Michelle is also part of the Order of Disorder, Bernie's clown order, called Odd, O-D. Odd, anyway. And Michelle, anyway, this is what he says. He starts the case. There's always a case in koans. The case is, quote, "I am a terrible priest," exclamation point, said Murio Roshi. And then Michelle writes, Murio writes, and this is from the Nine-Headed Dragon River. At Eiheiji, Tetsugen, that was his Dharma name, Tetsugen has scarcely stopped talking about Dogen. For Dogen, the Zen of our everyday life, moment after moment, is truly the way of enlightenment. That's what Yogetsu was so beautifully talking about yesterday. For Dogen, the Zen of our everyday life, moment after moment, is truly the way of enlightenment. Dogen's great contribution was the perception that daily practice and enlightenment are one. Daily practice and enlightenment are one. That's why his system here at Eiheiji was the emphasis he put on everyday life, on work and personal conduct, instead of koan study, Teisho, and Dokusan. So many teachers say all is the Dharma, but I don't feel they truly mean it or live their lives that way. The only way to be truly universal is to be very particular, moment by moment, detail by detail. If you're just universal, you lose the feel of life. You become abstract. And the universal here is more like, this is me talking, the absolute, the unconditioned, the boundless, what Dogen calls the vastness. But if the emphasis on everyday detail is too rigid, our existence loses the power of the universal. So that's interesting, right? Too tight. It loses the power of the universal. What a balance it is. To walk with one foot in each world, the universal and the particular, this was Dogen's way and his life. Could be the absolute and the relative. To walk with one foot in each world. And that's exactly what we're practicing here in Sesshin. We're really paying attention to detail and trying not to get too rigid about it so we can let the universal in and kind of have a little relaxation in there too. You know, there's a balance, like in our lives, same thing. And our Oryoki practice, for example, that has been going, I think, really good. Really, really good. Everybody's learning it. It's wonderful, really. And it's a ritual, actually. It's a ritual. Unfolding the cloth. The way you hold the bowl, the way you get a meal offering and putting it back down in the bows of thank you, serving it so it doesn't fall on the floor. I know you've been working so well, the servers there. Every detail. And the universal appears right in those particular moments. All of it it is a gate, right? A Dharma gate. A gate through which awakening is accessible. Somehow. I don't know how it works, but anyway, this particular and universal together. So every detail matters, and we're not being too fussy or perfectionist either, right? We're trying our best to do it, well, right. And it's working with your heart. Right, the teaching talks about 84,000 Dharma gates. 84,000, which is to say infinite. Everything is a gate. It was wonderful to have my goddaughter here on Tuesday, Eleanor. Her mother was my best friend for many years, and when I was living in Portland, Oregon, and she died 11 years ago. And Eleanor is in her 40s now, and so I was actually very moved as we were doing the bowls, and tears just started sprung. And I was just really appreciating the moment. I know her mother would be so happy that she was here and doing this. So that was one more thing. Michelle talked about this story. You know, he says that Murio Roshi, Peter, was never too comfortable being a priest. It went against his strong anti-authoritarian tendencies. In spite of his reluctance and his resistance to the stiff formality that Zen training could sometimes manifest, he was fairly insistent about those few rules at his Zendo and forms they adopted at his small, tiny ocean Zendo. And I love this part. It says, a monk or priest officiating at service or giving a talk could always look forward to a list of improvements and suggestions afterwards. Right, so. And one time, Michelle says, they were reading the sutras, and he flipped the sutra book to another practitioner in the Zendo, you know, instead of walking over there. He flipped it across the Zendo, and then he says, then and there he was subject to a well-deserved public upbraiding. He later, Murio Roshi later explained that any book in the Zendo was to be treated as a sutra and never casually. And that's also like our zafus and zabutons. Unless you're old, you move them with your hands and not your foot. You know, you just bend down and move them. So that was Peter Matheson's story there. There's more in there, just but. The next one I wanted to talk about was Wendy Egyoku Nakao. She actually went to ZCLA to a session on a dare in 1975. 7-day with my Zumi Roshi. And then she moved in 1978. 3 years later, she moved in and was with my Zumi Roshi until his death, 1995. She was his Jisha. And when Roshi and I got married, my Zumi Roshi officiated, and Igyoku was his Jisha. She was born on the Big Island, just like me. And she's half Japanese and half Portuguese. Mm-hmm. We call those hapa in Hawaii, half. There's a lot of hapa, mixed races, intermarriages, a big thing in Hawaii, which is great. So she was the abbot after my Zumi Roshi died. She wasn't the first abbot, but she took over in 1999, and under her leadership, the center has really expanded to become very family friendly. She's now retired, but she's still the head teacher. And, right, family friendly and socially active, creating an important experiment in the development of Western Zen. So yes, Kathy and Carlene, our family program is wonderful that you're doing it. And Igyoku Roshi conferred Dharma transmission to the first African American woman, Merle Kodo Boyd. And she co-wrote the modern Koan's book with Eve Marco. So here's the case that she wrote about. It was the first night of the second bearing witness retreat at Auschwitz-Birkenau. Speaking to the group in the Auschwitz auditorium, Rabbi Ani Shalom was overcome with the spirit there and began to sing and dance. The entire group was swept up in this energy and began to sing and dance with him, waving through the rows of chairs in the aisle of the entire auditorium. People began to feel uneasy, and as the unease rippled throughout the group, the singing and the dancing stopped. People were upset that they were dancing and singing at Auschwitz. Bernie called a meeting of the key people involved with the retreat. We went to an adjacent room and sat in a circle. People expressed their upset with him, saying, "Why are we singing and dancing at Auschwitz? This is only the first day of the retreat. This is something maybe for the last day. This is so wrong." People vented. Bernie listened. Then a man to my left leaned toward Bernie, who was on my right, and demanded, "You need to fix this." Bernie responded, "I am not here to fix anything. I am here to bear witness." And here's her commentary. In that moment, bearing witness opened up for me. Just actively listening. Bearing witness is not passive at all. It is listening in such a way that one is alive to whatever is emerging. Not trying to hold on to an idea of how things should be or intending to make the situation other than it is. The just part is not knowing. The active listening part is bearing witness. touching and being touched by how people and situations are in the moment. They arise together along with the third tenet of taking action, the spontaneous response to the moment. Bernie's action in that moment was him saying, I am not here to fix anything. I am here to bear witness. The three tenets are always in motion, arising together in an unending, life-giving spiral. We were there, and I remember thinking, oh my God, we're dancing. And we're in the Auschwitz auditorium, and we're in the middle of Auschwitz, and I'm like, oh my God, is this right? I don't know, I feel very uncomfortable. So that was Ikkyo Roshi. The next story. Pat Enkyo Ohara from the village Zendo in New York City. And I understand she does have Alzheimer's now. I know. So Enkyo received priest ordination from Taizan Maizumi Roshi in 1995 and Dharma transmission from Bernie in 1997, because your teacher died. Maizumi Roshi died in 1995. So she's the founder of the village Zendo in New York City, the heart of Manhattan, as well as a founding teacher of the Zen Peacemaker Order. Prologue. This is Enkyo Roshi's prologue. When wheels are turning, wind is blowing, words fly this way and that. Is there meaning to be discerned? Prologue. When wheels are turning, wind is blowing, words fly this way and that. Is there meaning to be discerned? The case. Bernie came from New York to take care of Maizumi Roshi's funeral. A group of us were gathered at Zen Mountain Center waiting for him to join us and give instructions. Although I hardly knew him, I was asked to pick him up at the Los Angeles airport and drive him back to Mountain Center, a 3-hour drive each way. At that time, as was my usual pattern, I had rented a low-cost rent-a-wreck. There he was, waiting for his ride. Bernie got in, dozed a while, then woke up as we stopped and started along the strangely traffic-laden desert highway. It was hot, the car was noisy, its windows down and blowing the desert air in our faces. I was embarrassed that I was subjecting him to such discomfort. I apologized for the shabby car, for the heat, for the traffic, and for the very long drive ahead. Bernie adjusted his posture, looked at me, and said matter-of-factly, "Oh, then this is a good time to get to know you." Bing. This is Enkyo's Bing. She has that in here. Okay? All right, so you just said matter-of-factly, despite all of this, oh, then this is a good time to get to know you. 3-hour drive ahead. Commentary. In our years working together after this meeting, Bernie continued to teach me the value of dropping pretension and apprehension and insufficiency and recognizing the precious moment. Verse. Oh, now, here, on this hot and dusty road, because it is so well hidden, it takes a Zen master to expose the jewel hidden in the dirty car. And finally, I wanted to share Eve Marco's story about Bernie in this book. So here's her prologue. Eve Marco is Bernie's wife. Prologue. I have many stories relating to Bernie Glassman, my husband for some 20 years. But the one that comes up for me often is an old story he told me from his years at Zen Center of Los Angeles, long before I met him. It took place at a time when Maizumi Roshi was in Japan and put Bernie in charge. At that time, almost every noted Eastern teacher who came into the US talked at ZCLA because there were very few forums for Eastern teachings in this country. The case. One day, a Hindu teacher asked to speak at the Zen Center, but there was a condition. For this teacher, the color black evoked death. The teacher would not appear in any room that had black in it. Of course, Soto Zendos at that time were mostly black, including the mats, cushions, and the robes. Bernie agreed and set to work changing the look of the Zendo. He told all members not to show up wearing any black. No black priest robes, no black Rohatsus, no black sitting robes of any kind. And since there was nothing he loved more than putting people to work, he also had them cover up the mats and cushions with different color fabric. In that work crew was John Dido Laurie, who is the abbot of Mount Tremper, the Zen Center there. John Dido Laurie, he finally turned to Bernie and said, "Why is it that we're the ones to change the look of the place where we sit when they're the ones coming to visit?" Bernie told me that he said to Dido, "Because we're the ones with the practice of being one with everything. That may not be their practice, but it is ours." Commentary, Eve's commentary. Bernie may have said it tongue-in-cheek, like the joke about the Zen practitioner who tells the hot dog vendor to make him one with everything. But over the years, I find myself recalling this story again and again. I come from an Orthodox Jewish family from Eastern Europe that was fundamentalist in nature, with almost no tolerance for anything different. Mm-hmm. To this very day, when I visit them, I avoid wearing sleeveless or short dresses in summer
Mm-hmm.
In visiting grandparents in the past, I would cover up my hair.
Mm-hmm.
They, of course, didn't make the slightest effort to reciprocate or try to understand my Zen practice. I would grumble about this and then remember the above story.
Mm-hmm.
It's my practice to bear witness to everything, not theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie never implied that this way of being is the only way or even the best way. He just said that this was our practice, unconditioned by how much reciprocity or lack thereof we get from others. This has helped me in many situations, reminding me to deeply listen to someone I may not agree with and who may virulently disagree with me. It could be anything, from a friend who tells me that coronavirus is not real and that no one has died, to someone who loathes every single voter who helped Donald Trump get into office, to someone blithely informing me that everybody knows that Buddhism is a form of idolatry. It could be encountering subtler but hostile reactions to my practice, my gender, or my politics. I bear witness to them. I don't agree with them, but I bear witness, trusting to that to inspire whatever action I wish to take. I've learned not to make bearing witness conditional on what the other person does. As Bernie said, it may not be their practice, but it is mine. Okay, this is So I think that's what I have to present, and I would love to have some discussion now or thoughts about these wonderful points that Bernie's successors brought up in this beautiful book. I mean, there's so many, right? There's so many.
Roshi, thank you for sharing those stories. They're very powerful. I have a question, but first I have a comment. The comment is, when Zen came to the West, when Buddhism and Zen came to America, it had to be such an exciting time. And I feel like you and Roshi and the others that you're talking about were kind of like part of that blossoming. And I've had the good fortune of being part of an organization before when it does that, and it's just so much fun. The energy is so great. It's hard, it's chaotic, it's, you can have a lot of chiefs and no Indians, and that's probably not politic to say that, but yeah, and we're so enriched because you bring that energy, you and Roshi bring that here, that deep experience of being part of what came here, and I really appreciate that. My question simply is, do you remember what was done at Auschwitz, afterwards, after Bernie bore witness?
So one of the cool things, we all went to it was night, it was time to go to bed, And that's when I had to return. We were staying in the hospital that was turned into a hotel, you know. So we had these little tiny rooms, and I was thinking, oh my God, what has gone on in these rooms, you know, this hospital for the Auschwitz folks. And that's when I was totally terrified, you know, just terrified. And the next morning, we had small groups, and we could talk in circle council practice in the small groups with a leader. So we're able to process that. I mean, because nothing was done then, everybody left, all in this kind of state of shock, and, you know, different people had different feelings, of course, but I know I was like, I don't know if what we did was right, but okay, we did it, and now it's time for bed, and that was another experience for me, is trying to sleep in that room that felt totally full of spirits. I felt it was like, and I was really, really scared, so dealing with fear, right? But that's when I thought to myself, why in the world did I come here? Why did I come here? Because I was just totally scared out of my wits. And the word that popped up into my head was forgiveness. And I was like, forgiveness? What kind of answer is that? You know, so I had to really process that. But for me, I saw, you know, if we don't forgive ourselves from things we've done, like we do the Gatha of Atonement first thing in the morning, it's like it's a way to kind of soften, and otherwise then you will definitely pass on the trauma from generation to generation. And it's not about forgetting the trauma, but having such hard feelings in your heart is, I don't think, helpful.
First of all, it was beautiful talk. Thank you, Roshi. To sort of piggyback on Chris's comment, it was almost 25, maybe over 25 years later, when I went back to Auschwitz shortly after meeting you, and I can tell you that they've done a much better job of presenting and allowing people to feel what they feel, singing in the camp, and the word that came to me was reclamation. And there was a moment that will be with me for the rest of my life that we had broken out into two groups, a Buddhist group, meeting with the leadership of the Zen peacemakers, and then a Jewish group that had met with a rabbi. Every year they invite a rabbi. And at the time I was going through my, well, I'm a Buddhist now and I'm not Jewish anymore phase. But I felt drawn to go with the rabbi. We had been talking. And the ability to go and sing, and during that meeting, I sang the Eitz Chaim, which is part of the tree. It translates to the tree of life, part of the Torah ceremony. But the ability to stand up and reclaim for all of those people who couldn't say those prayers, and I got to for them. It was the greatest moment of reclamation I have ever experienced in my life. And thank you for paving the road.
Again, thank you, Roshi. Beautiful, just beautiful talk. I don't know much about Bernie Glassman, but I do remember reading that somebody said, they asked him, or they told him he wasn't going to be able to feed all of the hungry people in New York. And he said, I know that, but I can try. I just think it's amazing.
Just like the starfish story, right? All the starfish that were on the shore, and one guy was throwing them into the sea. Well, it'll help this one and help this one. This one here. So yeah, Bernie wanted to, he heard all the voices. He said when the first time he was at Auschwitz, he was there before he started doing the Bearing Witness retreats, and he said he just heard all the voices and the hungry ghosts there, and just wanted to do something, and that's what got him going on the Bearing Witness retreats.
Well, I am very, very moved, very profoundly moved by your recognition of Auschwitz in your talk. It's just bringing me to a really soft place in my heart. In my Nana's kitchen, it's a big part of growing up, hearing just a lot of joy from my Nana, not really talking too much about it, but just seeing just how soft and loving she was, even though she was in so much pain. It was a good lesson. But I wanted to share that Shuso and Ryushin and I were working on the archives during SAMU practice, and we were going back over this lineage chart of Bernie's students just before your talk, and Ryushin said that that's a great book we should find and read, the one that you brought just now to the talk. So I just really feel the power of Roshi Bernie, the Dharma, and just all of that feels really soft, and I just feel like I trust in him and his teachings even more after your talk, and I'll be spending more time learning more about him. Just grateful, and I just want to say thank you to Teisho for doing that. That does mean a lot. We all have a deep connection. But I know for me, and growing up, that's a very strong connection. I too was like, for a minute, I'm Buddhist. It's like, my mother and my father told me, you can take the girl out of, the Jewish, but you can't take the Jewish out of the girl. And it's just, I spoke a lot, but I was very moved, and I just feel very planted right now in this practice. And I'm so grateful that in this practice we get to care so much and love everyone. That's just so important. It's the only way to live, and I'm grateful. Thank you so much.
And including you too, right? Right? Yeah. That's everyone. Yeah. I like, there's this idea about not to, right? We say not to instead of all one, usually, not to. And it's about, let's see here. So, let me see here. So there's the unique and there's the not separate, like the relative and the absolute. Unique and not two. Unique and not separate. No separation. When you say one, it's kind of like it's all mushed together, right? So I really like that not two. Individual, unique, particular, and not separate. I'm sorry, was I Shuso, you had a question or?
No, I'm just holding
Okay. 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 Any questions online or thoughts? Yeah, these such beautiful. So you can see why I was crying when I was reading this book yesterday.
I do want to share one thing, and I feel like every time you speak, you crack a part of my brain open, and I'm just so grateful for being able to learn so much from you every single time you speak. So, thank you so much. And I think I speak for everyone here as well.
Even when I speak in the Zendo after service.
Maybe not during service.
During service, I try not to do that sometimes.
But we were always left with great improvements for the next service.
Thank you, Roshi. It was great hearing these stories of our lineage and just all the connections. I didn't realize Enkyo Pat O'Hara was part of the lineage. When I was in grad school in New York, she came and critiqued one of my projects. Yeah, so it's nice seeing the connection. I made a meditation chamber. It was this inflatable chamber, and I was like, oh, nice to sit inside. And I remember her comment to me. She's like, oh, you've sanitized meditation. You've made it so nice. You've taken all the grit and dirtiness out of it. And that really stuck with me. So it was nice to hear that connection.
Right. She was a professor at NYU also,
Okay,
right?
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, that's where I was.
In media, something in media.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That was the program I was in.
Yeah.
So that was nice to make that connection.
Yeah. So I remember her at the Sesshin that I went to, that first at Zen Mountain Center, and she was, I was doing something, I don't know, some Samu thing, and I went into a room and she was giving Roshi a massage. She was doing that. So.
My question for you is, I was just curious if you could share any stories of personal interactions with Bernie, because I've heard stories of him, him being quite a character. So I was wondering if you can.
Yes,
recall
yes,
any.
a character. One of the things, we were living in the farmhouse all together in Montague. There were 12 of us. It was a big house, an old farmhouse, and we were renovating the barn that had so much stuff in it from the previous owners. They were like, I don't know, those big containers that you throw junk in? Something like 5 or 6 at least of junk we had to throw in. Anyway, we were having dinner once, dinner or could have been lunch, and he said, try to fill your mind with as many thoughts as possible. I was like, that's a good one. That's a great one. And he was talking about Murio Roshi once, and he said, wherever Murio, Peter Matheson, went, he had a small notebook with him for all the writers, and he would take notes of the details of what was happening, the environment. If you're a writer, that's really important, right? The details to bring the story alive, or whatever you're telling. And I remember once I was driving him from Santa Barbara, which we were for a year when we went to work with Roshi, Bernie. He was at Bernie at that point. He had disrobed, and he was just Bernie, but he was a fabulous Zen master. And somehow I got the task of driving him to a talk in San Francisco from Santa Barbara. So I was driving, Maizumi Roshi had given Bernie his car, which was a Toyota, really nice Toyota. So I was driving it, and I had a dream the night before that I was like kind of in an antique shop, and there was this metal bull, you know, like the ox herding pictures, and I was sitting backwards on this bull. So I told Bernie what I had dreamt about, and he just smiled. He didn't say anything. It's like, okay, I'm driving. So I haven't studied the ox herding pictures, but there is one about riding the bull and returning to the marketplace, right, with gift-bearing hands. Yeah. But I was backwards on that bull. Yeah. We took turns cooking dinner because there was 12 of us, you know, and we were all working on his peacemaker community that he was building. And so one time I got to, Bernie was my partner. I was like, oh no, what am I going to cook? I don't know. You know, it was fine. I was, you know, if you're not a Sesshin, like this is like a rarefied atmosphere here, you know? In everyday life, you know, it's everyday life, and you get kind of, you're tired at the end of the day, and, you know, but I don't even remember what we cooked, but it was just, you know, it was just normal. It was just fine, yeah. So, yeah. I do know when Roshi and I decided to leave the peacemaker community because they were running out of money and I got a job, I didn't know where I was going to go. And I remember talking with Eve and Bernie, you know, to tell them that we were leaving, and I just burst into tears. I wasn't expecting that, actually. But I just burst into tears, and we had been living in the farmhouse for 9 months. We were sharing a bathroom with Eve and Bernie. So, and I remember once I was having to present something to him. Because I was working on Jishu's project, his second wife who died, on peacemaker villages. These were socially engaged nonprofits, basically, spiritually based, socially engaged. And my job was to somehow bring everything together. I didn't know what I was doing. How do you bring, you know, all these nonprofits in the world together? And so I just was making a presentation to him, and I remember him really listening. That is an experience when someone is really listening to you. I wish I could say that my presentation was brilliant, but it was not. I don't think it was, you know. It was like, you know, I'm trying the best I can. I'm not sure what's going on here, but... And he was, you know, I don't remember what else happened, but just that listening was such a gift, actually.
To An's point, I'd never met Bernie, but you will learn a lot about him. He wrote a book about his favorite movie. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he and Jeff Daniels wrote, Jeff Bridges, not Jeff Daniels, Jeff Bridges wrote The Zen Master and the Dude about the Big Lebowski, and went into a whole big thing about how the dude abides. And it keeps coming back to me. It's just like, oh, this is okay, and it was a good watch as well, the Big Lebowski. So.
Well, it is now 12:01. I think it is time for lunch. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paisan.
And for homeless people to get a job, to get skills, it's amazing. I just heard I had to reach out to that client just to see how it's going, and he was really into it. No. Yeah, I'm not sure about timing. 20 years maybe. 25. I have to go and look at my files and things, but my client was really interested in like social entrepreneurship, and her thing was to hire me to have some business owners for good. So how can we have a business that funds itself and we're not always in this company place? Yeah. No, I'm thinking all day about I love that. I'm thinking about it.